Welcome to the Speaking of Women's Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Holly Thacker, and I am the Executive Director of National Speaking of Women's Health. And I'm back in the Sunflower House for a new episode of this podcast. And we're in season 3, and I am going to talk about omega fats 3, 6, and 9. One of our current first-year women's health fellows, Dr. Nayoung Sung, and one of my former fellows who's graduated, gone on and gotten additional training in functional medicine, Dr. Sobia Khan, and she's been on the podcast for prior seasons, and she's a certified functional medicine clinician in our Center for Specialized Women's Health. They both wrote a column at the beginning of 2025 on omega fatty acids. And this is such an important topic that's finally getting a little bit more attention. And when I check so many of my patients' ratios, I'm getting abnormal results. And so it's great to have resources on our speakingofwomenshealth.com website to direct people who are more interested in getting more information about how they can have a much healthier fat balance. So I'm going to take some information from their column as well as other information that I have been looking at and examining and studying, and I found out some new interesting facts that I think you're going to be very interested in hearing about. So omega fatty acids, they're definitely essential for health and wellness. But for many of these so-called seed oils, there's an unnatural extraction process. So unlike some of the natural oils like olive oil and coconut oil, which can be extracted through pressing, seed oils such as soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed, safflower, canola require unnatural methods for extraction. So I learned that canola oil is the name for Canadian rapeseed oil because most canola oil or rapeseed oil is actually made in Canada, and they export about 90% of this manufactured unnatural oil actually. And this undergoes, the processes include high heat and chemical solvents like petroleum, leading to oxidation and the formation of trans fats before they even get to your kitchen. So industrial seed oils are really a very relative recent addition to our diet, exploding in consumption from essentially zero in the early 1900s to 70 pounds per year per person. And this certainly corresponds to a surge in chronic health issues. Now, certainly, correlation does not mean causation. I talk about how in the 1950s there were a lot of telephone poles put up. Also, there was an increase in lung cancer. Well, it wasn't from the telephone poles. It was related in large part to cigarette smoking. So again, correlation is not causation. But we've certainly had a huge burden of increase in chronic diseases in adults and in children. And as part of our mission to be strong and be healthy and be in charge, we really want to empower people with information. So omega-6 and inflammation. Now, our body does not make omega-3 fats, like in fish fats, or omega-6. And most of us get plenty of omega-6. And when I get lab tests that look at the ratios of all of these fats, it should be about a 4-to-1 ratio. And I find that most people in my practice, with rare exception, have so much more omega-6. And vegetable oils are very high in omega-6, especially linoleic acid, which is a precursor to pro-inflammatory eicosanoids. And these molecules cause chronic inflammation and can contribute to autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are so much more common in women. And we've said that, it's in part related to estrogen and testosterone, which males have so much more of, adult males. That helps tamp down the immune system. But there's other environmental factors, not just the sexual dimorphism changes. So if you ingest too much omega-6 without the balance of omega-3, certainly there can be flares of health issues. And oxidative stress on the body and cancer, studies show that diets high in vegetable oils, particularly linoleic acid, lead to oxidative stress, dysfunction of your mitochondria, which are the little powerhouses inside your cell, and potentially genetic damage. So if you have oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and genetic damage, you can see how cancer could be promoted. And some studies reveal a several-fold increase in metastases in diets high in these oils. So not a day goes by in my clinic that I don't see a woman concerned, some woman concerned about her weight. And the two substances I say get rid of in your diet, which also feed cancer, and I tell this to my new cancer patients, is get rid of sugar, that fuels a lot of abnormal cells, and get rid of your seed oils. Looking at mortality rates, over a 7-year groups that ingested high amounts of vegetable oils had a 62% greater all-cause mortality compared to those with lower consumption risk. And that seems to be as strong or stronger than obesity, which is also a huge problem, and heavy smoking. And both of those conditions increase death rates and cancer. In terms of heart disease risk, the Minnesota Coronary Experiment found that participants who increased their intake of corn oil and margarine had an 86% higher incidence of heart attacks. I remember years ago as a young person, even before I went to medical school, the push for margarine instead of butter. And it just didn't seem right to me. It just seemed so artificial. Things like eggs were demonized. And eggs are rich in cholesterol in terms of the yolk and choline, which is good for the brain, but is a very healthy food stuff that's natural and that is high in protein, low in calories, good for the brain and nervous system. Choline's helpful for muscle cramps, which a lot of my patients suffer from. And many eggs, especially if they're eggs that are made by chickens who are fed omega-3s, can increase omega-3s. So I always buy the omega-3 eggs because at least 2 of my 3 sons were not big fish eaters, and I was always cognizant of trying to get more omega-3s in their diet. I wish I would have been a little bit more persnickety about reading labels on foods, because as a busy working mom and now a busy working Mimi with grandchildren, I keep getting more grandchildren. It's so exciting. Sometimes you don't have time to always make everything from scratch, obviously. And convenience foods in particular are loaded with these cheap petroleum-based vegetable oils. Now, from most inflammatory to least, safflower oil has 70% of linoleic acid. Grapeseed oil, also 70%. Sunflower oil, doesn't that sound so healthy? Sunflower, I mean, it's our logo at Speaking of Women's Health. Okay, well, avoid that one. It's 68%. Corn oil. Corn seems like, it's a vegetable. It's so much fun to eat corn on the cob in the summer. So corn as a vegetable is fine, but corn oil is 54%. Cottonseed oil is 52%. and crystallized cottonseed is Crisco. I remember looking at that too, and a lot of pastries and things call for Crisco, and it just never seemed natural to me. But things like soybean oil sounded so good. That's 51%. Rice bran oil, 33%. And peanut oil is 32%. And that Canadian rapeseed oil, canola oil, and it's in a lot of health foods listed as pure pressed, is still 19%. Now let's compare that to some natural fats like butter, grass-fed butter, 1% of linoleic acid. Tallow, grass-fed, 1%. Coconut oil. Coconut oil has been kind of demonized as a medium-chain triglyceride. And it's sometimes hard to cook with depending on what you're making because of the strong taste. I really like it to moisturize skin and hair. But I do try to use it some of the time, and it's only 2%. Ghee, butter, and I've gotten some interesting vanilla bean ghee that I sometimes put on some baked products, is 2%. And regular tallow is 3%. Lard is 10%, which is the same as palm oil and avocado oil. So the two oils that I usually recommend that my patients use primarily to cook with are olive oil. And olive oil can range as low as 3% of linoleic acid, as high as 27%. On average, it's about 10%. And I really don't think you want to go over 10% for the most part. Now, a lot of olive oil is, the cheaper brands are contaminated with canola oil and some of these cheaper oils. So I think that information and those percentages are really important to keep in mind. So a margarine study, kind of aptly named, looked at the group consuming margarine very high in linoleic acid from vegetable oils had a 700% higher risk of stroke, heart attacks, and cardiovascular disease. And I know there's so many people out there listening that thought that margarine is healthier than butter. No, it isn't. And this is compared to groups that ingested a good amount of omega-3 rich foods like fish oil. So these stark differences underscore health risk of high vegetable oil consumption. And since vegetables sound so good, we always say eat your fruits and vegetables, that people have translated that to vegetable oils, which isn't the case. So you need to rethink your oil choices and opt for naturally, minimally processed fats. So, you have been listening to the Speaking of Women's Health podcast. I am your host, Dr. Holly Thacker, in the Sunflower House, not the sunflower oil house, because that's really pretty high in linoleic inflammatory omega-6 fats. So this is just a state of mind and a positive attitude and the beautiful, iconic sunflower. So omega fatty acids are essential fats that do play crucial roles in many physiologic body processes, including regulating inflammation, brain function, and cardiovascular health. So some of the times that I'll order omega-3 fats is when someone's complaining of brain fog, which can be from low estrogen. I mean, if they're classic menopausal symptoms and they get better, with hormone therapy, and I don't find any lipid abnormalities, and I've already done, a basic history about their lifestyle and diet. Cardiovascular disease for further cardiovascular risk assessment, sometimes in people with autoimmune conditions. Frequently, our ophthalmologists recommend extra omega-3 ingestion for dry eyes. And if you haven't listened to our dry eye podcast or read the column on Speaking of Women's Health, which is updated, there's lots of great information. And dry eyes are such a common problem. I certainly noticed that since I personally started really rating labels and making a conscious effort to get more omega-3s and try to take out as much inflammatory omega-6s as possible, that even in the dry winter, my skin and my eyes don't seem as dry. There are polyunsaturated fats that are important for maintaining health. And as I mentioned, the two primary types are omega-3 and omega-6. So the omega-3 fatty acids are so-called omega-3s, and we have columns and lists on our website with...
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
Foods. The omega-3s include three. Number one is ALA, alpha-linoleic acid. EPA is number two, eicosapentaenoic acid. And three is DHE, doxohexaenoic acid. And omega-3s for a long time have been known for profound health benefits, particularly when they're in foods. They lower the level of triglycerides, and they lower pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they reduce chronic inflammation and oxidative stress that are associated with age-related diseases, including neurodegenerative disorders and cardiovascular disorders. It looks like omega-3 fats also help lower the risk of depression, mood disorders, dementia, and arthritis. So when I have women complaining of depression, I look at the lifestyle, I look at hormones, since estrogen's a natural mood elevator. I look at vitamin deficiencies. Low vitamin D can increase the risk of depression, mood disorders, arthritis. Look at zinc levels, because low zinc levels affect the immune system. And it's amazing that people that are overnourished in terms of calories and have too much weight, particularly central adiposity, many times are nutritionally deficient, and they need a complete overhaul of what they're ingesting. Omega-3s may also help some menopausal symptoms, minor mood fluctuations, and minor aches and pains. And so optimal blood levels, according to our labs, include an index of over 5.5%, and many in the field consider 8% ideal. I have hardly seen any 8% in my practice, so I think we have quite a way to go, America. And I do see a lot of health-conscious people. Now, the omega-6 fatty acids are abundant in nuts and seeds, and they help the function of all cells and play a role in inflammation. They're also very concentrated in vegetable oils, and that's where I think too many people are getting too much. If too much omega-6s are consumed, it can be harmful, as mentioned, due to pro-inflammatory effects. So how much do you need in a day? So for ALA, which is one of the omega-3s, about 1.6 grams a day for men, 1.1 gram for women. But pregnant women and breastfeeding women need 1.4 grams to 1.3. And that's so important for the baby's development and brain in utero and then in breastfeeding. Omega-3 fat ALA can be converted to EPA and DHA. However, the body does not use ALA as effectively as EPA or DHEA. So for many vegetarians, again, this isn't medical advice, you need to talk with your healthcare team. Many vegetarians, it's recommended that vegans take EPA or DHA supplements if needed. And I think if you're feeding a strictly vegetarian diet to a young baby or young child that needs brain development, again, you need really close attention from your pediatrician or family medicine physician. Now, EPA and DHEA, the general recommendation of both combined is about 250 to 500 milligrams, which is the equivalent of 2 servings of fish per week, 8 ounces. And that's something I've always strived to do. Although some weeks better than others, I'm not really great in the kitchen with fish. And I think if you go out and eat fish, but they're frying it in vegetable oil, you're kind of, or getting fries on the side, fried in vegetable oil, you're really just messing everything up. It's interesting to me that several fast food places, like I just heard that Steak and Shake is changing all their French fries to beef tallow, which of course is better to fry your fries. But again, you want whole foods and healthy foods and not just a bunch of greasy foods either. I think though, just based on what I'm seeing, that when I see women who have more appropriate ratios and I ask them what their diet is, they seem to be getting 4 servings a week of fish. And that is a lot. It can be expensive depending on what part of the country that you live in. If you're a woman who has high uric acid, a lot of fish can be very high in purines, which can increase uric acids, although salmon is one that's low in purines and really rich in omega-3s. So anytime I go out to eat, I try to get fresh salmon. For optimal cardiovascular health, many say you need 1 to 3 grams a day, not just 250 to 500. So again, that's like over double of the bare minimum. And I'm going to have to go back and update some of my recommendations when I said just get 2 servings of fish a week and you'll be fine. That might be fine if you're getting other foods rich in omega-3s and if you are really taking out all those seed oils out of your diet. Pregnancy and breastfeeding women, they are so special, and you're taking care of a growing new person or persons if it's more than one baby you're carrying. And so they need at least 300 milligrams per day, including 200 milligrams of DHA for fetal brain development. Now, in terms of omega-6 fatty acids, which are much more abundant, it's primarily linoleic acid, 17 grams a day for men, 12 grams a day for women. So some of the foods that are richest in omega-3, the seafood rich in EPA and DHEA is mackerel and salmon. And I've ordered some mackerel from Norway, and it's got a lot of tiny little bones in it. It's a very, very fatty fish, but it's really the richest. And you don't really find that on very many menus. Tuna, but because of potential heavy metal contamination, we don't usually recommend it more than once a week, and in pregnant women, maybe even a little less. Sardines are a good option. Herring, which you can find in cans, it's also known as kipper. It's kind of nice to just spread that on some whole wheat toast. Anchovies, which can really spice up dressings. I'm now making all my own salad dressings because if you read labels, pretty much almost so many of the salad dressings have these petroleum-based vegetable oils. Cod liver oil, moms used to give kids a teaspoon of cod liver oil, but that has vitamin A in it, and you can get toxic on vitamin A, so it wouldn't be more than a teaspoon a day, and that's probably still not enough vitamin D for many people. Caviar is rich in omega-3, but that's not an everyday food, and it's pretty darn expensive. Trout, we have some nice trout clubs in Northeast Ohio. I have a girlfriend who takes me to her trout club, and they make the most delicious trout. And then seaweed, vegetarians have to pretty much ingest seaweed, sea lettuce, sea grapes, green nori, also brown seaweed known as wakame, hajiki, kombu, and kelp. Red seaweed is nori, palmaria palmata. And algae also contains EPA and DHA. In terms of shellfish, oysters, which are kind of expensive and some people consider a delicacy, also rich in zinc, are rumored to be aphrodisiacs, but really probably aren't. Just having good nutrition and not having a lot of inflammation probably makes you feel better and more interested in fun activities of life. Now, some of the plant-based ALA-rich foods, walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds. I routinely will add chia seeds and flaxseed to my Greek yogurt. Soybeans, spinach, also cruciferous Brussels sprouts, which have anti-cancer DIM effects. The omega-3 enriched eggs. I know these days, because of bird flu and the culling of all these chickens, unfortunately, eggs have really gone up quite a bit. But they're a good source. Hemp seeds, spinach, and kale. So there are some plant-based needs and nuts and seeds that you can ingest, not just fish. I do know there's people that are allergic to fish. I do know that there's definitely a segment of people who cannot tolerate the smell or taste of seafood, which is really unfortunate because it's really very nutritious foods. So if you're one of those people, you have to work that much harder. So consuming foods can help meet ALA needs, but the conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA, as I mentioned, is limited. It's like less than 10%. But there is still some plant contributions. So those omega-6s I mentioned are these seed oils, which I think are best to avoid, like cottonseed oil, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, and a lot of fried and processed foods contain this. So the goal is you want a healthy balance, and that is so optimal. But unfortunately, the typical American diet has an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio exceeding 14-1, mainly because of processed foods and the high consumption of vegetable oils. I have patients who tell me, "Oh, doctor, don't worry, I just use olive oil. I even get it from Europe, or avocado oil. And I don't use, any of that stuff." And then I ask, "Do you go out to eat?" "Oh, yes." Well, very few restaurants are using the more expensive oils. Apparently, there's an app that you can pay for or that list. I think it's good to start asking questions, just like a lot of our celiac patients wanted gluten listed on menus. So I think seed oils are going to be the next great one. And having a 14-1 ratio really puts you in a high cardiovascular risk and high inflammation risk. And some people suffer with a lot of musculoskeletal pain, joint pain. And really the ideal balance is 4-1, not 14-1. And the 4-1 ratio is considered much more favorable. There's no actual official guidelines, but experts agree that lower ratios are generally preferable. By adjusting dietary habits to reduce omega-6 intake while increasing omega-3, most people can improve their ratios, supporting better health and better outcomes and reducing inflammatory disease. So you might ask, how do I calculate this? You can track the foods that you consume, identify omega fatty acid sources, read labels, determine if it's omega-3 or omega-6, and calculate your ratio and try to aim for a 4-1 or lower ratio. Now, what are some of the symptoms that your ratios may be off? Changes in your skin, like dry skin, acne, means you may not have enough omega-3 fats in your diet. In fact, one year I had really very dry, irritable skin, and when I was going to the skincare esthetician, I've had a few of them on our show. So in season 1 and season 2, if you didn't listen to our skincare esthetician interviews all on skincare, I had one look at me and say, "Oh, you're just not getting enough omega-3 in your diet." And I was kind of taken aback. I'm like, okay, really? I am a women's health physician. I eat healthy. And then I consciously made an effort, and my skin really did improve. I think I've told the story before on the podcast that when I was pregnant with my third son, Grayson, I kept going to McDonald's with my older two. I mean, I didn't give them the Happy Meals, but they liked the little Happy Toys, so they were happy with the toys and the little mini beanie babies that they were giving out then. And I would just crave filet of fish. I didn't eat the bread. I didn't eat the tartar sauce. I just needed the fish. And I'm sure it was because my body needed more omega-3. Now, there's probably maybe healthier ways that I didn't have to have fried fish. I could have had some kipper on toast or some mackerel that I made or fresh salmon. But definitely brain function, you need omega-3. And many people with depression and anxiety can be dramatically improved by fixing their diet as opposed to going on potent pharmacologic agents. So I think if you've got some mild mood disorder, you might really want to look at your diet. Certainly, if you're severely affected by depression and anxiety, you want to seek mental health, see your physician or healthcare team as soon as possible, and not just only look at diet, although we should all be looking at diet. As I mentioned, dry eyes, omega-3 are known to maintain eye moisture and tear production. Some of my patients, when I find out they're on omega-3 supplements, probably the two most common reasons are their triglycerides are high or they have dry eyes or both. Again, I think it's always best to try to do it by diet because the cardiovascular reductions have primarily been with foods, not just swallowing a bunch of expensive supplements. That being said, there is a selective case to be made for many people to take high quality supplements. Joint pain or stiffness. I mean, who does not over age 50 have some joint pain and stiffness and osteoarthritis? If you haven't heard my podcast on joint supplements and joint pain and joint replacements, which are pretty common, that's a good one to go back to listen to. And there have been some studies showing reduction in pain and actual increase in grip strength. Hair health. Okay, what woman is not interested in her hair? I think the hair podcast I've done are the most listened to podcasts. So listen up, women. Omega-3 fats can improve the hair density, strength, and texture. So is vitamin D and estrogen and zinc and iron and really high quality protein. When should you take omega fatty acid supplements? Well, the American Heart Association has recommended eating fish and seafood regularly because they contain omega-3s, and they have been shown to reduce risk for cardiovascular disease and sudden death. But dietary supplements might be an option for individuals who just can't consume enough due to allergies or dietary restrictions or personal preferences. Studies have shown that omega-3 supplements can reduce mortality in patients with prior heart attacks and those with heart failure. In addition, 2 grams of EPA and DHA supplements can lower both triglycerides and non-HDL cholesterol. They do not significantly affect the LDL cholesterol, though. So if you cannot eat enough of these foods we've talked about, then talk to your healthcare team about whether you may need a omega-3 fatty supplement. Some of the options include fish oil, which can make you burp a fishy taste, krill oil, sometimes lemon is added to these oils. Cod liver oil is kind of like the natural way that a lot of people have taken a teaspoon a day. Again, beware of too much vitamin A. Algae oil, for vegetarians, it's derived from algae, plant-based omega-3, and has DHA and EPA in it. So omega fatty acids are vital for maintaining health and preventing chronic diseases, particularly the EPA and DHA are highlighted because of anti-inflammatory and immune modulating properties, which can benefit your immune system, age-related degenerative conditions, and particularly how your body may respond to viruses. By understanding the recommended intakes and balancing the 6-3 ratios, incorporating fatty fish, plant-based foods, or if needed, supplements, working with your healthcare team to optimize your health and your well-being. If you have seafood allergies or follow a strict vegan diet, then look to algae oil and ALA-rich foods to provide effective alternatives to ensure omega-3 consumption. I have some patients who will get flax oil, and it's not very good to cook with based on its smoke point, but they may sprinkle that on some vegetables or some salad. Read labels for salad dressings and mayonnaise, which generally has soybean oil. Even the ones that are marked olive oil generally only have a little dash of that and have a bunch of the other oils in it. So I've gone to buying the avocado-based mayonnaise for the few times that I need that, like for when making tuna fish sandwiches. So thank you so much for listening to our Speaking of Women's Health podcast. Don't miss a future episode. You can subscribe on Apple iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode or you want to support, share it with others, donate to our nonprofit, and leave a 5-star rating. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time in the Sunflower House.